started these alchemy classes a few years ago. So there is a part one. There is also a part two. My goal is to do these all three at least once a year. If we do them now in a lodge, we'll broadcast it as well, so other brothers can get the information. So I'm Briggs Cunningham. Was raised at Saguaro 45. I'm an alchemist. I've been studying alchemy since I was about 15. I'm 47 years old now. I've traveled quite a bit and worked with a lot of teachers. I'm here tonight to share you guys this information because it's part of the tapestry of our brotherhood. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to a PowerPoint and let's see here. And we'll be doing some live stuff tonight too as well. Whoops, hold on one second here, guys. Let me close that. Let's go to share screen, desktop. There we go. Let's get this guy going. All right, can you guys see that screen okay? Okay, so I'm calling this third class practical alchemy. You're gonna see me use that word quite a bit. This is the combination of the operative and spiritual works. There's the two coming together as one. So your first class was on spiritual alchemy, which is a key I created on the left. And in the first class, we went through this key and we kept adding images going from the bottom up. And we discussed a lot of the different symbols, allegories, stories, processes of harmony. We also discussed how alchemy, kind of like when you study corn in North America, you can study where people have traveled. Alchemy is the same way. It's something that we humans do. So you can do a lot of history by just reading these testimonies and diaries of these alchemists. And you'll see me looking down. I'm using notes. That way I don't take us down a rabbit hole because I can do it real quick. So on the right here, we have what was class 2, which was a history of alchemy going back to ancient Egypt about 300,000 years ago when a meteorite hit. You can find one of those pieces of glass in some of the jewelry found in King Tut's tomb. We moved into a character named Tuharka, who's actually in the Old Testament for coming to save the temple through Hezekiah. There's a history on him I shared that was whitewashed. He was a pharaoh that ruled both the lower and upper kingdoms and had a lot of production of metal and makeup and basically alchemy. A lot of the natural sciences were happening there. So we talked about that. Then we went into India. I showed you guys alchemical processes with mercury in India on site. Went into China, we discussed their alchemy. We went into Greece, Alexandria. We ended up in the Middle East. Then we ended up in Europe, and then last in the Americas. So that was kind of a brief synopsis of the first two classes. So this third class, I want to provide you guys a practical explanation of alchemical works. We're going to get rid of all the symbology and the symbols and a lot of that stuff was created to protect the alchemists and to help him memorize what he was doing in the laboratory, to protect it from being copied from others and also getting in trouble for what they would call back then magic. Some of my research, quite a bit of it, I'm going to share with you here today, stuff that I've gathered. Feel free to take notes. This is also being recorded. Anytime I do a presentation on alchemy, I always ask the guests, when you have time, you can watch it for free on the BBC. It's called The Story of India. It's an incredible documentary. And what I share with you today, you can kind of follow alchemy within that presentation. Alchemy is basically, an alchemist looks at nature and studies nature. He reads books as well, but he notices that there's a harmony in nature and that his mind is not harmonious. So by watching nature and by applying processes in the laboratory, the alchemist is working on stilling his mind. That way he can move on to more important experiments. Practical alchemy. Alchemists are researchers in the mysteries of nature, and they discover the secrets or hidden knowledge of the material world by practical work. And it's true, God has to always participate with the alchemist to complete his work, because he's always missing a key that he gets from whatever your perception of God is. Internally receiving the wisdom, and then externally with the help of the Spirit, put together a process which at the end should create some type of awe moment. This is a city built in 1824 in Pennsylvania. It's called Old Economy. The top right has a grotto, which I'm standing next to here on the left. They had tunnels going to all the buildings. There's a ritual garden that you can see here. Alchemists would have ritual gardens, which you would study the 7 liberal arts. You would start in the center where the Fountain of Sophia is, and then you would branch out. Now, this is a modern Google Earth 3-dimensional version of it. So it's changed, over a couple hundred years. The bottom left building, now they were Rosicrucian. These were family members of mine. That's why I got access. The bottom left building was, I think at one point, the biggest freestanding roof at its time. If you were a Freemason or a Rosicrucian and you walk into that room, a ritual went down in that room. The little building next to the Great House to the left has a little bright roof sticking out. That was the alchemical lab, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. This spirit that we're talking about, that the alchemists always invoked, regardless of the culture, regardless of the language, they were always talking about a spirit within matter. In Christianity, we call this the Holy Spirit. You can read about the love story in Genesis. Akhenaten called it the Aton, or the atomosphere. That's where we get this word from. The Spiritus Mundi, spirit of holiness. I like to physically see this spirit in the mornings when the sun rises. And when the light, especially here in Arizona, just peeks over the horizon, if you're truly in the moment and focusing on nature and reading it like a book, it's incredible how life explodes in that moment. It's a big bang in itself. The birds come alive, everything comes alive. So I would highly recommend, with our busy lives, take a moment, watch that sun come up, go camping, and wait for that moment. It happens real quick. But this is the things that they were seeing. And the Emerald Tablet tells us that powerful creative spirit is still here. Not only is it here, but it is inside of you in full force. They always invoked it. Think about the first thing that happened to you when you walked into the Blue Lodge. The question you were asked. Everybody has the same answer, and it's funny because they all know it. And when we give that answer, we mean it. Now let's talk about separating the gross from the subtle or the pure. Here we have a very popular medicine today. This is a photo of a purple punch plant grown in a grow house in Tucson by one of our brothers who owns one of the biggest grows in the US down there. And I went down there to do some alchemy. So what we have to do here as alchemists, and if we're going to be working in the plant kingdom, is we need to remove those crystals from that plant, because that's where the medicine is. And we need to understand, why is it growing those crystals? It's sunblock. So now I can manipulate the light to create the plant to create more sunblock. Again, it's natural science, practical alchemy. So how are we going to get those crystals off without getting the rest of the gross material? How do we remove bad habits from our lives? How do we decipher good news from bad news? So this is also a lesson on every level. We can use a distiller like they did, but there's a lot of material lost. Alchemists are inventors because they're always inventing processes and machines and tools to help push nature to go faster and to also to be able to recoup as much of the Paracelsus fire as they can. So today we've created a new process. Get a little bit more oil out of that plant with this. That's a modern day distiller. And we're not using fire, we're actually using ice to calcinate it. Then the oil is poured out and it looks like pure gold. I mean, it reflects like glitter. The black you see in there is just from the image. It's really something. So again, you're going from something, you're going through all these colors of processes and you're ending up with a final color process. Here it's baked and then reduced back to its original form, a crystalline form on the right. So we've taken something and we've extracted basically the subtle from the gross, and we've done it gently and with judgment. And those are two key alchemical words, with gently and with judgment. A lot of people today discover alchemy by studying the Kabbalah. If they get into Kabbalah or some of those books, whoa, what's this alchemy? Like, for some reason, alchemy is just really heavily attached. But the alchemists work a different tree. We start at the sun when we meditate and we move out. The alchemists have always known, even you go back to the Sumerians, that the sun was the first planet, not the third. So we start in the light and we meditate out to the darkness, the no thing, and then we come back. And we use these planets as meditation. We use them as they do in Hinduism as chakras to remove certain type of things we have going on in our minds through meditation. We use them as memory wheels as well. Now let's share a little bit something about John Dee. John Dee is a very popular alchemist today. He was an astrologer and a mathematician for Queen Elizabeth, one of the smartest men to walk the face of the planet. And he created a Enochian alphabet. And as an alchemist, you look at that and you go, what is he hiding? Because people have been working on this forever. What is he hiding in there? So we start pulling out numbers and we start thinking like him. We read his diaries. We start thinking like he thinks in the 1500s. And what he's doing is we extracted a geometric pattern out of this alphabet. And when we did and we looked at it, we saw all the platonic solids. And then what we figured out is what he was doing was trying to, and he was hiding his work. He didn't want anybody to find it. He was trying to do is he was taking the sun and the earth and the planet, and whenever they aligned, he created a dot. And he knew the sun was in the center. And then he connected the dots and he came up with a geometric structure. Now today we can drop that geometric structure into AutoCAD and make it three-dimensional. So what I'm about to show you is what he saw in his mind. These alchemists could see these things, but they couldn't produce them because the tools weren't there to produce them. You can see the ring of Earth. You can see Venus and its pentagram, Mercury and the sun in the center. Now watch what happens when we drop this into AutoCAD. Think of the G lecture. Think of a creator. And what you are about to see is your solar system that you live in. There's the image. Now we're gonna start spinning it. Isn't that beautiful? So as alchemists, these are the things we work on. You know, this could be something for anybody in this group to look at right now and be enlightened. This could be a catalyst for you. You can see the stone in the middle. So this is also happening inside of us. The alchemists would say that what you see here is actually, there's a microcosm of it happening inside of you as well. Now, this all has to stick together. This whole entire shape has to stick together while it's flying through space. So the Hindus knew what this looked like without computer technology. And if you look at it, you'll see a lot of symbols from Hermeticism as well that it got from a lot of the old Hindu and Egyptian schools. And even in some of the Vedic writings, they talk about how, what if we could get control of the sun and steer it? Now we've got a spaceship. I don't know, I thought pretty hard. Now let's get into chemistry. We touched a little bit on astrology and astronomy. Let's get into chemistry. Chemistry happens between human beings. This is one of the last alchemical labs in operation in the 1600s, where our brethren met to put in place a plan. And we'll get back into that. We're going to go through a practical text here. We use a lot of practical texts. We have one out there called The Divine Art of Making Gold and Silver from 400 AD. The Emerald Tablet Unzipped has got some chemistry in there as well. Some of the practical people that were involved that we know today are like a Dee and a Kelly and a Francis Bacon and a St. Dunstan and a Ripley, St. Germain, Cagliostro, Agrippa, and ends with George Rapp in Pennsylvania. We'll get a little bit more into that. They didn't have acids like we do today. If you go to sell some gold or something, they're going to test it with an acid. In 200 BC, we have Archimedes jumping out of his bathtub saying Eureka, because he's learned the distribution of weights. Well, the Egyptians knew this a long time ago if you just look at their illustrations. So this text here is called the Leiden 10 Codex. Was written in about 250 AD. It was sold to the Leiden University in the Netherlands by a man calling himself the Swedish Vice Consul in Alexandria in the 1800s. What you have to understand are a lot of these texts are still in private libraries. There's a ton of them. I have a fraction of my life left to access them, and they're everywhere. A lot of them are with royal families, parts in Europe, libraries. All you have to do is ask, and they'll give you access to them. It's pretty amazing. So this one here was found in Thieves with the Stockton and Magic texts talking about the sun, Venus, perfumes, invocations, gold alloys. We'll be doing one of those processes today. Electroplating. They were taking zinc and copper and hemp, dipped in salt, putting them together, and you can create a little arc and electroplate with that. Something we can do in the future. They were testing for purity. We know that by looking at King Tut's mask, it's pure gold. It was put through a process. They knew how to dye gems and remove scratches from them. They knew how to create paste jewelry. Gold leaf writing techniques are also involved in here. Even the laws that you read in the 123rd Egyptian, I think it's the 123rd spell, which are the laws of Moses. Instead of I won't do this, they were saying, you know, at their deathbed, I didn't do these things. I didn't do this to my neighbor. I didn't steal this. It was a little bit different. In the 1400s, alchemy was a felony because there was a lot of fake money going around. I'm going to show you today how they made that. But the interesting with working with nature and alchemy is we always hear these colors. We see them in the Scottish Rite: red, black, white, peacock's tail, and red. What I have found when I'm working on nature, when I start reducing it, it goes black. When I reduce it more, it goes white. When I start to bring it back in a different form, it starts changing different colors. And then it ends up red again, but now it's a purified red. And we see this in all the kingdoms, in the mineral, the metal, in the plant. So when you're reading an alchemical text and they're talking about these colors, you need to know the mind of the alchemist to see what they're talking about. Are they talking about a cinnabar path? Are they talking about working on a plant? Are they talking about extracting DMT from acacia? There's a lot of practical proof. People always want to know, did they turn lead to gold? Can that happen? Yes, it can. Mercury, can mercury be transmuted to gold? Yes, it's happened many times. If you take a look and read this right here, this was a group of guys in Harvard that did it not too long ago. Franklin Lohr hit mercury with about 11.34, what they called electron volts. And what it did is it created enough kinetic energy to move that valence electron that needs to be moved from that charge to be transformed into gold. Because mercury and gold are damn near identical to each other if you look at them on the periodic table. You read something like this: take 4 parts of the perfected stone, either red or white, melt them in a clear crucible, take 1 of the parts of this to 10 parts of purified mercury. Heat the mercury until it begins to crackle, meaning stand back because it's going to blind you. Then throw in your mixture, which will pierce it in a twinkling of an eye. That can be so many different processes. The one I'm showing you here is a process they use in India. It's a medicine called red oxide of mercury. This is one that I prepared, which I was taught. It also produces white mercury oxide and blue. Those two are very poisonous. They'll kill you on the spot. The red one is a medicine. I won't get into too much of it here today, but from a life experience, I can tell you it's a real medicine. You can Google that. Red oxide, siddhas. All right, now the fun stuff. Let's get into the acids here. Everybody has seen this image. The green lion. Nope. The green lion eating the sun. Whenever you see something on the History Channel, or a book ended up in Vegas at the pawn shop. It was an Isaac Newton book. I couldn't believe it. And it had this image in it. They probably still have for sale because nobody knew what it was. This is an image Isaac Newton worked and worked and worked on. At the end of the day, it killed him. You can actually access his autopsy report. He had mercury in his hair. And I'm going to show you what he was trying to do. So the green lion can be many different things. Today, we're going to use this symbol for an acid called Aqua Fortis, which is called strong water. It's nitric acid, is what's known today as nitric acid. How do you make it? Well, they had to mix they had to get a bowl of water and hydrochloric acid. Place in the bottom of a large glass you place the water in the bottom of a large glass, about 10% filled with water, add a copper solution, top the glass with another glass. Then the green and red dragons, or lions in this case, create nitrogen dioxide gas that is forced out of the bottom, creating nitric acid. So right here, we can be an alchemist and we're going, oh, there it is. There's the green and the red lion. I see why they call them lions, because they can attack me and hurt me. Well, I'm going to show you some other places these colors appear. So again, when we're reading these and we're talking about them, we got to really know what the alchemist is working on first, because he could be describing something totally different that is healthy. And I'm going to show you that later, where this is, you don't want to be around this stuff here. The next acid we're going to talk about is basically called Aqua Regis. It's called King's water. It's hydrochloric acid and nitric acid. You can get hydrochloric acid from throwing up. That's where a lot of them got their hydrochloric acid. Jabir, who was a Muslim alchemist many years ago. It's probably the reason why we're talking today, because he was able to save a lot of this work during the Crusades. You've taken one of his classes called Algebra. That comes from him. And There's quite a few writings on King's Water with him. And what are we looking at here? We've got a red lion. He's got like a green thing in his hand. I won't say what it is. Is this an acid? Is he holding something royal? Is he holding a medicine? Is this a building in Prague that used to sell something? Like, we look at this, what is this? It's a red lion. Now, immediately we would go, oh, that's the acid. But no, again, these things are used in many different ways. This is the red lion, the hydrochloric acid with the nitric acid. What we're doing here is replacing a gold coin. The first thing you need is wealth. The alchemist looks for wealth because they need the gold to do their process. The wealth turns into health and turns into immortality. So we are using this acid to dissolve the king. What color is it turning, gentlemen? This is a very old process. During World War II, there was a German scientist who won the Nobel Peace Prize that knew this, and he took his Nobel Peace Prize and melted it into a liqueur to hide it from the German Nazis. But as you watch this, think symbolically, think spiritually. How does this apply to your spiritual life? What does the gold represent? What does the acid represent? What are we doing? So now we're going to apply some heat to the gold coin. Now the gold coin is still there. No gold has left. We have just separated the molecules so much that they do not reflect light anymore. We're reducing it to first matter. And it's gone. The most dense thing on the planet. NASA uses it on the space shuttles to block all the rays of the sun, the most penetrating thing on the planet. Now what we're going to do, next step in the process, we're going to put it in a bag with salt because we want to absorb all of the acid from the gold. That is the gold coin. Some alchemists would carry it like a wax, and then they would produce gold from it, tricking everybody because it's gold. Now we're going to take metabisulfate. Now again, they had to come up with all these ingredients. So a lot of the writings are these ingredients. Now our next step is we should see the symbol of gold right in the center. Boom. The next symbol we should see if we're on the right path is the pelican feeding its young, its blood. It's a sacrifice. From the top to the bottom, and at the bottom the young are eating the blood. Symbol of sacrifice. We know this in Scottish Rite. Beautiful degree on that. Oh wow, we went black. Going through all the processes. Now that metabisulfate, what it's done is it's now collected those gold atoms to its second state, which is back to a mineral form. That red powder is the mysterious red powder. That is pure gold. It's just been reduced to a mineral form. It's a powerful medicine, but you have to remove the acid from it. And if you study what gold can do, if you're able to digest it, you'll be blown away. You can't eat regular gold, you can't digest it. It has to be reduced. Now what these alchemists would do is they'd show up to a patron or somebody or a king and say, hey, here's my red powder, my philosopher's stone, and I can throw a bone, anything in there. That heat is gonna melt everything but that gold. So to them, that red powder is turning that item into gold. It just has to look the same weight. So the bone, the piece of metal, whatever it is you're transmuting in front of the king has now transmuted to gold because they don't know the trick. And then they say, hey, why don't you stay in my castle for a year and hang out? Now in India, where they have access to mercury in those parts of the world, do the process like this. What you're seeing here is the symbol of the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz. This is gold piercing mercury, which we just discussed earlier. Isn't that beautiful? I don't know what it is about it, but it's fun to watch. That mercury just eats it. And we're creating an amalgam. And the only acid we need is the first acid we talked about, nitric acid. We don't need the hydrochloric acid mixture. Because mercury does some amazing things if you know how to use it. Some amazing things. So we're making an amalgam here. In India, they would call this the philosopher's stone. It was an amalgam of gold and silver. And once you get an amalgam, you keep applying gold to it because you're applying wisdom to the mercury representing your mind that we spoke about earlier. Mercury is hard to capture like your mind and reflects everything that's happening around you. But if you can still it, you can consolidate it, you can control it. This was the alchemical processes they used to understand this and meditate on. They would get the mercury from a stone called crystal cinnabar, which has the symbol of the Star of David, the two triangles, which is very important to the Hindu religions and how they work. And that stone is made up of three things: sulfur, salt, and mercury. The three base things all alchemists start with. And it's a red stone. A lot of people get stuck here on this process. They don't squeeze the loose mercury from the amalgam. This is just a regular sock that's being used here to squeeze it. That was a process held, just something that simple was held secret. This is what Isaac Newton was trying to do in his lab, like underneath the castle, underneath brick. And he's breathing it in, he's tasting it. So there's our little Rasundo Booty, our little philosopher's stone. So tons of things have been called philosopher's stones. The philosopher's stone is a catalyst. It's the catalyst in your life that gets you to do something, that you have really determined to do. There's the green lion eating the sun before your eyes. This is what he was trying to draw. And again, we're going to see the red mercury of oxide come off. Again, he was probably hovering over it, looking down at it. This is a shorter path than the last one to get the red powder. And at the bottom is left. When it's all said and done, again, another process to get the red powder. So again, here we see all these images of all these lions and eagles. And what is the alchemist talking about here? Is he talking about an acid, a plant? You know, one of these, he's talking about zinc. Zinc was one of the most held secrets for thousands of years. It wasn't until Paracelsus, when he brought chemistry into the medical field, called it zinc. But it was a metal that was coveted amongst all, and I'm going to show you why. Before I do that, I want to show you a work here by a modern alchemist, Steve Kalek. He's a master alchemist. I love his work. What he's showing here is probably the greatest elixir I know of. And I recommend everybody make it, especially with what we're going through right now and what could be coming. Remember when our first experiment, we were able to take the gold and turn it basically into a red watery liquid? That's what we have at the bottom here. We have a mixture of the acid and the gold. So he's already prepared it in the bath. And now what he's going to do is he's going to add basically a solar oil. I won't tell you what it is because I want you to find out on your own. And what that oil is going to do, there's our colors again, green and red, but we're not Totally different experiment. What the oil is going to do, like a magnet, it's going to draw all the gold, all those particles of gold up to itself. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful process to watch. And again, while you're watching this, symbolically, spiritually, what is it saying to you in the processes of your life? And now what he's going to do, then he's going to extract it. And you can find his videos on Vimeo. He has done beautiful, beautiful reworks. There's our gold. There's our acid. Now it's safe. Add a little wine to it. And there you have probably one of the greatest things you can drink on the planet. So I really wanted to share that with you guys today. I hope in future, when I do this again, we'll do it live and everybody can go home with some. Wouldn't that be cool? A lot of people have seen this painting on the bottom right. This is John Dee. Edward Kelly's probably sitting there on the right, the great Irish storyteller. I know some of his stories ended up in Shakespeare. You probably got Francis Bacon standing there on the right. On the left of Queen Elizabeth is probably Nicholas Bacon, the plan maker. He's doing an experiment here. Now, these guys knew everything. They knew how to do all this stuff. One of the things they did in Prague is they went and found, because they knew the Egyptians did this, moldavite, which is left over from a meteorite. You can see it at the bottom left. There's precious metals in there. You can't see them. Why? Because I just showed you, they're reduced. They're broken up so much that they're not reflecting. Just like the mercury, what would happen if you dropped that stone into nitric acid? What would be left at the bottom? If there's any precious metals in there, that's what you're going to find. And that's what they were doing in Prague. The Ripley scroll. Now I'm going to show you guys a process here. Everybody good on time? I probably got maybe 15, 20 minutes. And let's see here. Let's back out of here.
Yeah, you're doing on fine. You're fine on time. You got 7:40, 20 minutes. It'll be 8 o'clock. You're good.
All right. I'm going to stop my share. You guys see me pretty good now? Okay. We're going to do the Ripley scroll. So zinc was captured underneath the athanor. It would be captured as a crystal. They didn't know what it was. They didn't even know like it was a metal. Again, you have to remember people from Paracelsus before didn't know this metal existed in its form. Today we know zinc. All the doctors are telling us to take it. The people that don't like you are telling you not to take it. As soon as COVID hit, I knew zinc was the answer. In an old alchemical testimony, Basil Valentine, which was 3 salt farmers during the Black Death, were walking the streets giving people zinc. And they have testimonies of it and how it was healing them. It's pretty incredible. Incredible. We're all deficient in it if you look. So let's talk about zinc. I'm going to point my camera down for you guys here. Get our little alchemical kit going here. So the first thing we got to do is we got to get our red powder. Our red powder. Copper. Now I've got it in penny form and I've got it in just kind of a little nugget piece here. Okay. So we're going to start with our red powder. Now we need our white powder. Can you guys see this okay? Yep. Lye. Lye is the white powder, also known as sodium hydroxide. Okay, now we need our white powder. We need some white powder. Now we need our philosopher's stone. We need our catalyst. We need the thing that's going to transmute our metal to silver and then to gold. Our catalyst today is going to be zinc. Powdered zinc. Just like the alchemists would have used it. Okay. We need water as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to boil some water, but I'm going to use the microwave. The alchemists are looking down from heaven, yelling at me, telling me I suck because I have a microwave. They would bless the water as well. Be right back. Actually, we don't need that much water. Okay, we're gonna let that heat up there, guys. And we're gonna do our transmutation here. The first thing we're gonna add is our white powder. The second thing that we're gonna add is our zinc, and it's gonna create a stone. It actually looks like a gray stone. And they thought, oh shit, this must be the philosopher's stone. And then when they applied the copper to it, with a flash, it'll turn into silver. I'm just waiting. I don't want to get it really hot. And then we'll apply heat to the silver and go to gold, but we're not actually making silver or gold. We'll talk about what we're making here in just a minute. Okay, we're gonna add our white powder. Now you gotta stand back, right? Remember it said it's gonna crackle? And it's gonna dissolve, and you know you're on the right path because it's dissolving. And you have to be very careful. If you've seen Fight Club, you know what this stuff does. Now we're gonna add our zinc, we're gonna add our projection powder. Okay, it's turning into a very fiery stone in there right now, very hot. Now we're gonna drop our red powder in. And if you could see it, as soon as that red powder touches that stone, it's gonna turn it silver, like immediately. Hope I got it hot enough here for you guys. Okay. Can you guys see that? Silver, beautiful, it's polished. Here's what it would have looked like to them. Remember that was bright red? I could convince you this is lead. And I could turn it to gold right before your eyes and take all your cows and take your slaves and take anything I want. And that's what they did, tricking people because they didn't know what zinc was. Now, our next thing we're gonna do is put on a little performance. You know, you could come up with all kinds of stuff to make this look cool, but we're just gonna do it direct. Now we're gonna apply some serious heat to this and watch as it goes through the peacock's tail. Watch how it goes through all the different colors. You're gonna see it rapidly, and this is what they talk about. You'll see it rapidly change. I'm gonna try to hold it up there as close as I can. It's changing. I don't want to get too close because it will melt. Here it goes. Gentle and with judgment. That one's having a little trouble here. We'll do another one, but you can see on the tip right here, it looks like shining gold. Can you guys see that on the tip? The whole thing will change. Let me try another piece here. Might not have got enough on there. There it goes. Oh, beautiful. You guys see it changing? You guys see that okay? Looks like a piece of gold. You know what we did? This is what we did. Is we just covered the copper with zinc is all we did. We didn't use electroplating. We really didn't use any acids. And then we combined the two, the zinc and the copper, to make brass. And so brass was something they thought was gold. And as you know, as these alchemists left the towns, it started to tarnish. That was one of the greatest secrets, was zinc. I'm gonna go back to my PowerPoint real quick here and finish off. So that's the Ripley scroll. You can imagine how much stuff you have to put in there. Again, I throw a Jabir in here. We got to really thank this guy. He saved a lot of this ancient work. Nicholas Flamel is another famous alchemist we know about. Lived a long time ago. People wrote about him 100 years later. It was always, you would always find somebody who did something good in life and then add to their story. We've done this with George Washington, haven't we? The cherry tree and all this stuff. So Flamel's kind of like that, and I love this guy. I like keeping his name alive. He was a bookkeeper or a book salesman and a scribe in Paris, France. You can visit his house. It's the oldest house in Paris, France. It's still there. It's the weirdest thing. He had a nave built in the Symmetry of the Innocents, and on the left, he left a lot of alchemical imagery, especially the cinnabar path here on the left. Now, we don't know if he really did this or not, because I found out as I went to Paris, France, and went looking for it, which is what it looked like on the bottom right, it's gone. It's been gone since the 1600s. And that image was created after the 1600s. So I don't know if it really existed or not. The top left, you can see an illustration of the building on the bottom left, which is the old house that him and his wife built for the homeless. His wife had 3 husbands and was very wealthy, very wealthy. And that's why they have streets named after them. Her name was Pernelli. And that's why they have streets named after them in Paris, France, and why this building is still there. They were big philanthropists and helped a lot of people. His headstone on the right is very cryptic. You can see that, I believe, in the Louvre. This is an alchemical lab that was discovered in 2002 in Prague. The Prague castle had a tunnel that went to this alchemical lab in the Jewish quarter. The writer of the Chemical Wedding describes it in detail. Even the path down to it, he's trying to reveal this place. It was hidden underground under a house. There was a flood in 2002, which opened up the ground or something, and they looked, and there was this lab, like it was sealed. They left it just as you see here. It had tunnels all over Prague, and it went to the main street where things were sold, the main highway where things were sold. And this is where they were producing glass, they were producing makeup, everything that's in the lead codex, they were producing down here. But they would not want anybody to know how they did it. These were trade secrets and glass and stuff like that. I mean, even the table on the left, look at that thing. It's incredible. This is the house in Prague today. And the lab is in the basement, and there was a famous rabbi during its heyday, and there's myths about fire and smoke and brimstone coming from the floors, and yeah, there was. This is Prague today. That house is in Old Town on the right. The Prague Castle is the top left, and the Edward Kelly's house and tower is at the bottom left, and he was a big deal in this area, superstar. A lot about what you hear about him is not true. A lot of things were made up after him after he died, unfortunately. So they had tunnels going to all these places, and I don't think there's access to them anymore, but the remnants of them are still there. Top left is a better picture of Edward Kelly's house with his astronomical tower. That's now a museum that you can tour. My old friend, God bless him, Vincent Bridges, did an incredible job setting that up and letting the world know who Edward O'Kelly truly was. The picture on the top right is the house in the Jewish Quarter that had the alchemical lab in the basement. Bottom left is the Prague Castle. Towards the top left is a strip. I've got zoomed in on the right. That was called Alchemy Row or Alchemy Lane. This is where things were also sold as well. And to the public, this is where they made it. This is where they made the stuff. The public never knew what was going on underground. And it was going on since the 1400s. That house on the top right used to be a secret pharmacy for the king. And they were probably making that potable gold that we were discussing earlier, potable meaning drinking. This is another place where alchemy landed, Heidelberg Castle with Philip V of Palatine. You got to understand this time, alchemists were traveling and they were all free under these guys, under Queen Elizabeth, under King Rudolph, and under Frederick V to worship as they would like and to do the sciences that they would like, which are two things that we hold dear in our country here in America. It doesn't start with these guys, but they carry the plan. They carry Francis Bacon's plan, and alchemy goes right with them. So they're hatching Rosicrucianism, speculative Freemasonry, etc. Because the church said, hey, anybody who wants to go kill Queen Elizabeth and basically ransack anything in London, have at it. And these smart men said, no, we're not doing that. We're going to educate everybody through the arts. We talked earlier about an interview we had with Peter Dawkins last Saturday. Man, did he sum up that whole story. Definitely go back and watch that interview. So this is Heidelberg Castle. You can tour this alchemical lab today. It's in the center there, down underground. This is my old friend, Terrence McKenna. God bless him, in the 90s. When we knew about this lab, he's going into it when the public didn't know too much about it. Now it's an incredible museum that you can travel. And you can imagine in that bottom right-hand corner, you could have Christopher Wren, you could have Francis Bacon, you could have so many of these men. This is where they met. This might have been one of the last places they met before the Battle of White Mountain in the 30-Year War, which is what basically wiped a lot of this out. Another place it lands is in the House of Heads in Amsterdam. This is a photo I took. This is where alchemists will submit their great work. And I got to do that in 2012 with Rittman. So An American Alchemist 2012, the book is in this library here. And this is another meeting place. Another place it ended up, another one of these groups that were part of this plan. In Germany, this is where Saint Germain hung out at this tower. They had 3 degrees of Freemasonry. We knew they existed, especially in Dee's time, because we just learned of the symbols in his Book of Navigation that clearly show it. They had an alchemical tower here. They had the lead in text. They were making makeup and taking scratches out of jewels and all that fun stuff. Today, it's a school for kids. This is what it looks like on the right. The alchemical lab was in the basement. As you can see, nothing is there. That's probably the first thing everybody went looking for. But Dr. McIntosh and Peter Dawkins are raising money to rebuild this. If anybody would like to help, it would be a wonderful retreat center. These are some of the illustrations that were probably done there by Saint Germain. Again, you have the lions on the left with the arrows. On the right, you have nature or Isis. Putting a man through a ritual. He has come in with no minerals or metals. He is looking into a cup with water. The 4 elements are there, the fire, you've got the wand, and even the alchemical process you see at the top left is the process I just showed you with zinc. That's actually it right there. And in Hebrew tells you the heat in which you need to get to. This is from the Trinus Sophia, the Holy Trinus Sophia, which I think is the most occult book on the planet. Palmer Hall does a good job of describing what's in this book. It's incredible. Going back to Harmony, Pennsylvania, on the left, our last stop tonight, here in America where alchemy lands. Again, here we have our alchemical garden where the 7 liberal arts were taught. You see these veiled under the words calcination, sublimation, up the staircase here. Some of us know about the staircase in the 2nd degree. The 7 liberal arts were important because if you could teach a human these things, they pretty much ended up pretty decent and pretty smart and intelligent and enlightened, and more importantly, living a spiritual life. So these are the secret 7 steps of Ignan Rosicrucianism. And it's my hope in my lifetime we can get back to teaching these 7 things in our country, because they do transform. And this is something the alchemists taught. Frederick Rapp taught it in his garden here on the left. You can see the garden here. Now, I'm up on the 2nd balcony, which the public doesn't have access to. There's a little door that goes into the roof where I found the hidden chimneys and the hidden fume hood when they were doing their alchemical processes and letters of what they were doing in that lab right there. So that was the alchemical lab. Maybe in the next 6 months, we'll get a group and I'll take you guys all there on a tour and discover some amazing, amazing history. Presidents showed up here. German royals showed up here. There's a big connection with our country with this group of people, and they were called the Harmonists, and you can look them up. These are some of the treasures that we have there. The book on the right is a Paracelsus opera. It's priceless. Rittman himself said he's never seen it. I can tell you it's very safe. Some of our treasures here on the left as well, and also they knew the sin of our path. That's where I found it. And here you see a 3-dimensional image of what crystal cinnabar looks like, and again, the symbology in the stone itself. The last place alchemy ends up, because it goes away again, because the plan was hatched. And again, I would refer you to Peter Dawkins' interview to talk about this plan. Alchemy went underground because the arts became public, and they become public through Shakespeare and many other ways, and they transformed England. And those English people came here and created our wonderful country. And it lands with our good friend Carl Jung. And when he's working on psychology, he reads the testimonies of the alchemists and says, holy shit, these guys had it all figured out the whole time. These guys were the psychologists. I'm gonna dive in and learn everything they were talking about. And that's what made him Carl Jung. Today, I'm holding a little bit of the mantle, so now you guys are stuck with me, unfortunately. So I'll take any questions that you have. My books are available at blurb.com. You can search my name. The latest one is called the Mysterian Trilogy. It's like the 3 manifestos, the Rosicrucian manifestos. There are 3 books that work together in which I've hidden all of my alchemical works and those that I've been taught. And they are all veiled in there using Francis Bacon's ways of hiding things. So it's a fun book for us that like to geek out on this stuff. I mainly made it for you guys that just want something to look at for years and just have fun reading and enjoying. American Alchemist 2012 is available at the Rittman Library. You probably have to contact them to see it privately. It is a private book. And then also we're live online at unknownphilosophers.com. Cosmo and I have a show that I am absolutely just loving right now. It's one of the funnest things I've done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this today. I hope you guys learned a lot, and I was able to transmit a lot of information that I think as Freemasons is really important for all of us to have and retain. So I want to thank you guys for listening today, and I'll take any questions, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the share here. Oh, last but not least, the guys that went to the first class and the guys that went to the second class, you need to let me know who you are, because I'm going to create I'm trying to get my window open here. I'm going to create a certificate for you guys that made it through all 3 classes. Yeah, Anthony. Oh yeah, there you go. Yep, old school.
I only see one question in the chat
No
room, Briggs.
way, you got a Rosendo booty. Yeah, dude. So get some gold from a restaurant providing company. You know that leaf gold? You can get it real cheap. Just lay it on top and let it sit there, and it'll absorb it, and just keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that. And after a few years, don't be surprised if the polarity flips and you got a nugget of gold.
I'm kind of afraid to open this because
No fear. There's no
No?
gases.
Okay.
It's an amalgam. You're
well,
fine.
it smells like ashes.
So does Siddha's. That's who it comes from. It might have been a guy covered in ash that put it together.
Doug,
awesome.
you had a question. Doug
Yeah.
Barnert?
Briggs, you had mentioned a place in Germany. It was about 3/4 of the way through. I guess number one, where was that place? And number two, about what year was, you talked about Masonic connections to it.
Yeah.
What year was that?
Yeah, you know, I've studied this for years and it's hard to put together because we all debate about it. And it boils down to Francis Bacon and Nicholas Bacon and a plan that they had. And that plan to create Rosicrucianism, to Nicholas traveled to all the lodges. He went into Scotland. He found lodges that were moral. And he said, oh, we can use these. The Germans had a part to play. And this was all hatched in London. I would 100% refer you to Peter Dawkins in our interview that we did with him. It is mind-blowing in his works. Now that castle it was called Heidelberg Castle. And this was Frederick V of Palatine. He was a teenager, like 17, 18. He's like a King Solomon. They saw him as a King Solomon because when I listened to the rabbis talk of Solomon, they're telling me he was building that house at 15. It's the first house built in the Bible of stone. As Freemasons, we don't build with brick, we build with stone. And so that's why the stone guilds were always tied to the building. The gardener guilds would talk about their rituals would revolve around the Garden of Eden. So these guys, even Edward Kelly, knew these processes with stone, a lot of processes. So that castle is in Heidelberg that you can travel to, and this is the beginning of the 30-year war. I mean, they literally started that attack because of that group in that specific place, and Frederick giving them the freedoms that we have today. They were living it for a short period of time.
And that's that black and white picture of the little place in Germany. There's the Heidelberg Castle, but there was another black and white shot that you had, which was much smaller, it looked like.
Was that Nicolas Flamel's house in Paris?
No.
Okay, we had King Rudolph's castle in there.
It wasn't really a castle. It looked more like just a
gosh, I'm sorry. I'll have to go
nice
back.
house, and that you connected it, and you said that they found Masonic groupings of some sort in it. Well, I'll have to just
Help us out, Jason. Oh, you got to unmute.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to tag onto that. I was getting ready for the next question.
Oh, okay. Douglas, I'll follow up with you on that.
Okay, thanks.
Are you on Facebook?
Yes.
Okay, I'll friend you, and I'm going to go back and get some answers for that.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yes, Jason.
Okay, I got several questions. You mentioned a great book called Trina Sophia. How do you spell Trina? The most holy.
Yeah, TRINOSO.
Got it.
IA.
Okay. And what is the name of that best drink? You said the best drink that we could all possibly have. What is that called?
It's got many names. The King's Drink, the Drink of the Sun. It's got a lot of different names. Potable gold, drinkable gold.
Okay.
Potable is going to be the alchemical word connection.
Okay. What do you use the red powder for? It sounds like it's got multiple uses, but you mention it as far as almost a medical scenario.
You know, the Templars learned this from the Sufis, I believe, during the Crusades. And when they came back, you know, they also learned architecture and built these cathedrals. The red powder they used in a lot of their glass
Okay.
That red glass that you see that people are really mystified by, they
So
still
this-
don't know that's gold in there.
So this is not something that people should ingest.
You have to get the acid out. I mean, I
What would it
not
be? What would
administer
it
to
then be
anybody.
used for? What condition would it be used for?
Study what gold does to your body like a magnet. It'll go through your body and pull bacteria.
Okay.
And then
You sort of
urinate it out, basically.
you sort of ominously hinted at what could be coming. What could be coming?
I'm sorry?
At one point, you sort of ominously hinted at what could be coming. What did you mean? Do you recall when you said that? As if something ominous were on the horizon.
Oh, I'm just saying, with what's just happened with COVID,
Okay.
you know how people are in this world. There's people that don't like people, and they're looking at this going, wow, look how it scared everybody.
Yeah, yeah. How much zinc do you
As
think people ought-
Freemasons, we're going to protect our health. And that's why I wanted to share that with you guys today. Zinc and that drink.
How much zinc should people take?
I don't know. I've heard 50 milligrams. I mean, definitely check with your doctors. Iodine. Eat some sushi. Get some seaweed and start eating it.
I got two other questions. First, did you know that in that one of those J.K. Rowling Fantastic Beast movies, Nicholas Flamel shows up?
The immortal Nicholas Flamel, the flame of God. When you do something courageous in this world, it remembers you. And the best place you can be placed in is in a children's story.
True, live forever.
So for him to be looking down, I mean, he must just be like, wow.
And hey, my final question, what do you do with all the extra juices that you got laying around there? That doesn't go down the drain, does it?
No.
Where does all the stuff, all the extras?
Oh, I've got a little, this is what I've been reduced to. I've got a little cabinet right here.
Oh, okay. Biohazard.
Little tablet replica in the back there.
Well, very interesting, Briggs. I'm sure there's others who have questions now that I've hogged a bunch of time. So,
Jason, let me answer your question about zinc, Jason. Dr. Carlos from our lodge actually recommends 50 milligrams. He got me started on zinc about 2 years ago, and I've been taking it ever since. 50 milligrams a day.
Have you noticed a difference?
Oh yeah, he started me on zinc and calcium at the same time, and I still get sick. I have asthma, so I've always had issues, but not as bad. Like the severity is much less.
See, as a pharaoh or a royal, you wanted to live to be 80 or 90 because you're going to live through 3 different generations, and bacteria is what's going to kill you back then. And if you can live for 3 generations, you're a god to that 3rd generation. You're just so wise, they don't even know what to do. And so that's why they kept these medicines from everybody, unfortunately.
Rob Knotts has a question. Rob, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, how's it going, Briggs?
Hey.
So I wasn't here for your past 2 lessons, and I wish I would have been, but just out of curiosity, so I've never really pursued alchemy necessarily. So what was it that really made you go, hey, I think I'm going to try this out? And did you have a moment where you're like, wow, this really works?
Yeah, as a kid, I always focused on things. I could watch an anthill for an hour. So I was always interested in how things work. And I've always felt a connection with God. I've never felt separated from God. So now I have those 2 pieces going. And at about the age of 14, I find my grandfather dies and leaves me his Masonic Rosicrucian, etc. library, which I knew nothing about. So I started opening these books at that age, and they blew my mind. He worked at Sandia in Los Alamos, to tell you a little bit about the type of stuff that he worked on. Very high level scientist. And so reading those testimonies, I just went, that's me. These guys are me. Like everything I'm reading is like, they're my friends, it's just like, if reincarnation is real, it's like, man, I was there and I was there and I was there, because you feel it in your DNA. So then I just started reading their experiments, and I'm like, I'm going to figure out what the Philosopher's Stone is, and I will figure it out until I die. Determination is the Philosopher's Stone, my brothers. it's the catalyst in your life that has determined you to do something. Really get it done. It's that, it could be a word of God. It could be somebody in your life. It could be a chemical experiment. And when I started seeing the ah moments, and everybody here has seen ah moments, that's what I live for now. And that's what they lived for. And that's why I continually study it and try to recreate what they were doing. Because of those ah moments. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Thanks.
Cool. Are you studying any alchemical texts right now or anything like that?
No, I'm actually more, how would I put this? I'm more interested in ceremonial magic.
Great. All
but
right.
there's a lot of crossover.
Right. It's natural science at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
When you boil it down, right? At some point you can weigh it.
All right, brother.